Good evening, morning, afternoon, everyone. We are back again. I'm Gray Paladin, and I have my good friend here with me today, too.
Yeah.
Darth Paradigm.
Hi.
That was like...
I'm dying.
That couldn't have been any more perfect timing.
No, it was me choking on volley fluids. Saliva. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
1 minute you're fine, the next minute you're choking.
Right.
Hi everybody, how you doing? Let me get mine.
So today I am drinking. It's a local beer here in Belgium, and it's their Christmas ale. And I actually got this obviously before Christmas, but I never got around to drinking it. So I figured now would be a good time. It's just one large bottle. I can just top it off my glass as we go through the stream. But that's what I'm working with today. It's a Brasserie de Cambron. It's an 8.5% ABV. What do you got, Scott?
I got my Voodoo Ranger.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
It's a hazy. I like my hazy. This one's 9.5. I was drinking these during Shannon's live stream, and I don't understand people that aren't drinking during the live stream. Like that, what I mean? How else do you do it? I mean,
well,
they're all vaping or doing something else, Me,
maybe
I'm like,
not everyone's a drunkard like yourself.
Hey, I'm a traditionalist. I mean, everything important that ever happened in the world,
Yes. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Oh, that's very good.
This stuff is so good. This Voodoo Ranger. It almost tastes like fruit juice. So it almost goes down too easy. And it works quick.
Well, greetings, Paul. Good to see you. It's always nice to have you hang with us during these streams. So today, initially, in our previous New Year's live stream, I said that I was going to come back after I've gotten my Crossguard. We're going to have a Crossguard stream conversation. But I got the great idea of, why talk about just Crossguards? Let's talk about all non-traditional lightsabers. So tonight we're going to cover and discuss Crossguards, curved hilts, the Inquisitor hilt, and Saberchuks, as well as lightsaber whips. So that's kind of the gambit of what we're going to discuss, and of course we're going to go through each one. Now we have Crossguards and curved hilts between the two of us, but the other three we'll use our imagination to talk about.
Oh yeah. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Never over another man's rhubarb. So let's go ahead and get started. Of course, folks will be chiming in, and if not, we're just going to have a nice little discussion here, and then the video will be up on YouTube for everyone to check out on their own time.
They can catch up in case they're watching football. If you're watching the football, then, that's understandable. They can... That's what's great about YouTube, right?
Yeah. I definitely need a little Saber something today because, my day was bad. But anyway, I did an unboxing of a TXQ Saber called Black Angel. That video is up. Hopefully you've seen it. And I did record the review, and I wanted to have that up before this live stream, but technology, so it probably won't be up until later tonight or tomorrow. But anyway, I've got one Crossguard, and I know Scott has a couple. So here's mine. Pretty decent. It's got a smooth swing board in there, but The main thing is talking about why we have this, and is it practical to wield, or would you rather just have a standard lightsaber? So I think we all know. Actually, before we start getting into that deep discussion, go ahead and tell us what you have there, Scott, first.
Well, I don't really have anything quite as bougie as what you have. I've got a Black Series Kylo Ren, which, for Black Series, I'm really fond of this thing. I've been fond of it ever since I purchased it. It's a neat little thing, and I don't know. I paid like half price for it, and I loved it ever since I picked it up. It's nothing great, but and I've got one of these. I've got like a. I've got an Ultra Sabers right here for you to look at. This is the Flamberge. The Flamberge. Alright. And then,
that one's actually not many looking, to be honest with you.
No, it's huge.
I like that it's simple.
Very heavy, but I like it. And then I've got my my Templar. And the Templar is just a Sun Saber. The Flamberge is an Emerald, and then of course the Black Series is Black Series. I did order a second Templar from the seller that was kind of offering multiple hilts on Facebook Marketplace, and the one that I bought, which I haven't received because UPS has lost it. And that one was is a leather finish with red LEDs and kind of a brown wrap. And I really hope that UPS manages to find that one, because I'll probably put these blades into that thing, and then that'll be sort of with a Crossguard, obviously because of heritage, I think it tends to it originates from Kylo Ren. It feels like it should be a natural sort of weapon. Although we did see, I believe we did see a Jedi Crossguard for one quick moment in Rebels. If you recall, when they went to the Sith Temple, and there was like the kind of like the battlefield inside the Sith Temple with all these lightsabers on the ground. I think Ezra picked up a Crossguard, and it ignited for a split second, and then it crapped out. So I don't know if anybody remembers that scene, but.
So, want to first talk about what a Crossguard is, and I think this kind of what we known it to become into the universe was Kylo Ren, and the fact that his lightsaber, his kyber crystal, was fractured, and in order for it to maintain stability in the blade, it needed side vents, to be able to blow out all the extra power that was coming through the hilt, so that it wouldn't just completely shatter and blow apart. And I think within that, he found his own fighting style and use for those side blades or those vents. So when I look at a lot of these other Crossguard hilts, I feel like the Queons, the side vents, tend to protrude pretty far, and that's what I like about your Templar, Scott, was that the side vents didn't seem like they were drastically long.
No, they're relatively short. Yeah.
Yeah, and to me that makes more sense.
I mean,
now, I think
they must stick
the Flamberge. That was the one I meant.
The Flamberge?
Yeah, the Flamberge. That one looked like it had very short side vents. Like they didn't protrude very far.
The same length, I think, as the Templar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that looks reasonable to me. And it looks like
they're very, very long, you know.
But there was an argument that, well, why have these when another lightsaber can just hit it and break it off, and now you have a problem. And I was talking with another Star Wars friend, and he brought up a really good point. And he says, well, if that's the case, then you could technically do that to any lightsaber, whether it be an Inquisitor hilt, a staff, or just a standard hilt. If they just go just below where the emitter is, they could break your lightsaber. So that argument kind of, I think, can be thrown out the window, because that could apply to any lightsaber.
It's a total fallacy, because I mean, it's like hitting a moving target, and the person holding the saber isn't holding it still. They're going to be moving it about and, you know, trying to deflect
and blocking your blade.
Really lucky to do that.
Yeah,
I think.
So the next thing is, I had some time to swing and use this saber over the last day or two, and I'll say I wasn't hindered at all in spinning it. I think it does kind of limit some of the flair and all the fancy tricks and spins and stuff. Like, sure, I can do an Obi-Wan with it, but I think the reality is, if the side vents and the blade's coming out about, say, 3 to 4 inches, sometimes when I'm sitting here and I'm doing, let's say, just a regular spin in my hand, well, if I don't do that correctly, right now, that side vent is basically gonna cut my wrist off. So I think that kind of limits a bit of your maneuverability with these things. I mean, you can't get too fancy if it were a real blade. That's just in my opinion. When you were using the saber or spinning it around, what were you feeling, Scott?
Well, the thing is, it's really a very, very specific style wielding one of these. You're not going to be doing a lot of, like you said, spinning. You're not going to be doing a lot of Obi-Anis. You do have to be very aware of the side blades, where their location is. And I find that, you know, you're going to be using more traditional, like knights of old, Middle Ages sort of fighting techniques. If you watch the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and you kind of pay attention to how Kylo Ren wields these things, I mean, it's a lot of his attacks are basically based on strength. They're based on, you know, slashes and very, very aggressive swings, and he's not really getting too. I feel like a lot of people get too wrapped up in making what they're doing with a lightsaber look pretty. They lose a lot of the practicality. They want to simulate the battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan on Mustafar. They want it to be, you know, flashy. You know, you'll see a lot of people, they rely so much on the Obi-Wan, and they just do the Obi-Wan, do the Obi-Wan, do the Obi-Wan. Just like, and I know that it's a fictional weapon, and it does have, you know, I mean, obviously there's no real reason to learn battle techniques, but I mean, if this were a real lightsaber, you know, you're gonna block, you're gonna use these blades to your advantage. And you're going to be very, very aware of the location of the blade, and you're going to have developed a style that's really specific to this type of hilt, and it's going to be, I think, effective. Probably more effective than what you see a lot of people doing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think these are designed to be using a lot of flair, but I think they can serve a purpose offensively as well as defensively. For example, I want to show a clip of where I think Kylo utilizes those side vents extremely well. So I'm going to share my screen and show this. Okay.
Hey, Emery, you're aware nothing's happening, right?
What did you say?
There's nothing happening.
There's nothing happening?
No.
Huh.
At least I'm not seeing anything.
Could you hear?
No. However,
No.
I could see what you were watching off of your face, but that wasn't enough information to really go on.
Huh. That's weird. Usually I have no problem.
Was anybody else able to see what was going on? Please respond.
Comments? Hold on. How about this? There we go. This is better. And there.
Should have killed him outright.
Yeah.
Paralyzed for life. Completely cauterized his spine, but whatever. Just put him in back the tank. One movie later, he'll be fine. And doing smoochies. I've always liked Kylo Ren's fighting technique.
Yeah, so but I think he utilized those side vents really well, where he was in a lockup, and sometimes, like, you can notice where that may be a stalemate, but then he was able to edge that side vent on just enough to be able to take out Finn. And he does that again with against Rey. And what I liked is how he utilized the side vent to kind of create, a lockup or kind of bring her blade down. And I think when those things happen, there's an advantage to using that crossguard. And especially when you're thinking about sword play, that crossguard one gives you actually an added level of protection, as well as kind of gives you kind of a bit of an edge of being able to manipulate your opponent's weapon. And he tries to do the same thing again against Rey. And so I'm going to share that real quick so we can watch that scene. And I think I've got it right this time. Okay, yep. All right, here we go. And there. So he almost tries to get her with that same side vent. So I think when it comes to us, now I haven't had a lot of time trying to use or spin this crossguard. But I will say, I definitely felt I couldn't be flashy with it because, granted, the edge of the emitters wasn't. I had no issue there, but I thought, well, what if I had that extra 4 to 6 inches sticking out there? Now that might be a problem. And I think Kylo, for the most part, did a pretty good job of maneuvering the saber so that way those side vents didn't hinder him. And it also seemed like when he was holding it, the side vents were almost kind of like if I was holding it here in front of my face like this. So when he's swinging and pushing like that, that side vent was actually facing the opponent. Now, I think the reverse could be, though this side vent is going to, say, injure Finn, but what if he pushed back? Now that opposite side vent could go into your chest or damage yourself. So I think it could go both ways based on, who you're fighting against and your own style and approach. Let's see if we can get caught up on some of these comments here. So Isaac says, doesn't it boil down to the user? If she is skilled enough to make it work, then so be it. Yes, I agree with that. These sabers are designed for the individual user, Dooku's curved saber, Ventress and her curved sabers, and so forth. Yeah, very good point there, Isaac, which I do agree with. Ultimately, does the crossguard with the side vents look cool? Absolutely. I remember when I first saw Kylo Ren, I thought, wow, this is a badass villain with a really sweet weapon. Because at first I thought, well, what do we do after Darth Maul with a saber staff. What's next? What's the next cool thing we're going to see in Star Wars? And I think it was the Crossguard, and I thought that was a really cool idea. It's just a shame that Kylo didn't remain the badass that he opened with in Force Awakens. But I do think it's a very cool looking weapon, and it's definitely different to use and wield. Thoughts, Scott?
Yeah, there's really not too much, to say about Crossguards other than the fact that, like you said, they're cool. They're an interesting concept. I think, it's a weapon that's suited to a specific fighting style. I feel that's more of an appropriate weapon for a more aggressive force wielder. So it's a natural for a Sith, and yeah, I mean, me myself, I mean, I'm more comfortable with a single blade weapon. I would hate to have to concentrate on. I mean, after using one for a while, obviously you get used to wielding in such a fashion where you're not going to injure yourself. But I don't know. I wouldn't want to have a weapon where I would have to be cognizant of that idiosyncrasy for too much. I'm more about, something like this just kind of works for me and gives me a lot more flexibility.
And that goes back to what Isaac said. It really boils down to the user and what fits you best in your style. So, yeah, these Crossguards are definitely cool. And to get to Volt, I was kind of talking about this earlier. Yeah, these could be sliced off, but so could any lightsaber. Ultimately, the user is going to be protecting themselves and blocking and defending. So if this is able to be sliced off by your opponent, well, same thing could be the top of the emitter from a regular lightsaber too. So I think it all boils down to how well the duelist or the person using the weapon can handle it. If this gets sliced off, then you clearly are not good at sabering or being able to handle yourself in a fight.
And who knows? Maybe the side blades are made out of Beskar. So
that too. We have, or a vibro blade. We've seen in Star Wars that there have been materials out there that have been able to resist destruction from a lightsaber blade. So
I do want to show you one thing about this Black Series Kylo Ren, how it ignites. Again, this thing is not the greatest, but I've always liked the way this thing ignites.
I'm sorry, I was coughing. Can you do that again, please? Yes, I always think it's best when the main blade activates before the side events, which does make sense because the saber ignites and then it's not enough or it's too much for the hilt and then it blows out the vents. And that's the whole point of these things is these are vents. It's not blades per se. So that fractured crystal, once you initiate that saber, so it doesn't basically destroy itself or blow up in your hand, it needs to vent that extra fractured energy out the side.
Yeah,
so, yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
It's one of the things that endeared this thing to me. Plus, you do have the scrolling blade effect, and when these ignite, they're flickering, and they when they light up, they kind of they flare on and they flare off, and as far as the Hasbro Black Series lightsabers go, this is one of the few that I think is actually, if you can get a good price on it, not too bad.
That's an all metal hilt too, right?
Oh, this thing is a heavy beast. This thing is solid.
Yeah, I had one of those. I had an empty one of those, and I was going to install it, and I realized it's not conducive to do so. So then I just sold it for $50 along with something else. Yeah.
I mean, it's not as good as like Sam's Nerds. I think he has. I think his is a Vader's Vault. I'm not sure where he got his, but he has a nice one, and I wouldn't mind having a really nice Kylo Ren, but I just don't have the money for it, so this will have to do.
Yeah.
But if I can get my Dark Side Templar, I think that's pretty much it.
Traitor!
I'll hold to it. I really feel like Kylo Ren was one of the only like shiny aspects of that whole fiasco of a trilogy. Well, anyway.
Yeah, I think he could have been much better, but yeah, I think he was one of the. It's difficult because his character continually got worse and worse for me.
Yeah.
But I think was it Jonathan Boyega? I think he is a good actor, and even though I feel like his character started being something strong and being good, but they just really diminished him. But for me, I think Poe and Finn were really great characters in that sequel trilogy, and for them, and I watch it for them. They made it for me, especially Finn. I think he is a good character, even though they try to make him out to be a bumbling fool. But the third movie, I thought Poe really shined really well in that one.
The best character in the third movie by far was Babu Frick. Am I wrong? I don't think I am.
But I did order from Etsy to side blades that look like they're flames. So I'm looking forward to that coming in. And I think you got some too, Scott. So I got my shipping notification a couple of, was it 2 days ago? But I know you'll still get yours before me because I'm in Europe and you're just down the street.
My what? What am I getting?
Didn't you order some of those side plugs from Etsy, that shop?
Oh no, I got what's already in my Saber. I got them from the Saber merchant. I got it from Jeremy.
But remember the Etsy store that I sent you a link to? I thought you said you ordered something too.
No, I don't really.
You didn't. Okay.
I haven't.
Okay.
I just, it's the thing is like we're kind of in this mode right now where it's kind of to quote Lord of the Rings, we're waiting for the deep plunge before the whatever the line is, and because there's things going on with the economy, and I'm sort of like kind of holding on, misering my money right now because I'm a little bit worried. But anyway, that's the side. Let's get into what we both agree on wholeheartedly is curved hilts.
Yes. Well, you were talking about economy, so I didn't want to cut you off. But yes, so I think we've kind of covered Crossguards pretty well. That's one non-traditional hilt that I think kind of works well. The next would be our personal favorites, the curved hilts.
Shall we?
Do
you have one of these?
You know what? I believe I do.
Oh, wow. Oh, when the hell did you get that, man?
Oh, man. So the next up is curved hilts. So these are not traditional because not many people utilize these. I think the one that kind of made it popular was Count Dooku. Which to some degree is not completely curved. The body is straight. And then there's a bend in the elbow going into the pommel, and there's a very slight curve at the emitter neck, which then kind of gives you this overall curved design. But then this is the Genesis Custom Sabers Bad Axe, and this one here, the handle itself, the body is curved, and then into the emitter is straight. And the third one that I have is the Saberforged Vanquish, which is kind of the same deal. But in this one, the curve is actually more towards the center of the body, whereas the Bad Axe is more towards the bottom of the body. Yes, and I know Scott has a Saberforged Vanquish as well. Yeah. This is the first saber I ever ordered and installed. So, want to address the curved hilts. Why would someone use a curved hilt? And people say, oh, it's supposed to give you, oh yes, that's the Saberforge Bane, thank you. And that's the one that I wanted. When I went to order, it was out of stock, but then I was very happy and pleased with the Vanquish. But curved hilts, I think the original thing about it was that, oh, curved hilts give you, oh, there's Adventurous. I think she has nice sabers too, which can also be put together into a S staff. But the whole thought was it gives you surprising angles of attack. Now, I would argue that I think Star Wars just kind of made that up. That's not necessarily true. The whole point of the curved hilt, based off of my research, and you see this is in fencing, everything is about, if you rapier fencing style, everything is about points and stabs. It's not meant to slash, it's meant to stab and run someone through. The curved hilt makes it easier to do that because now you can do a point without having to overarch or bend or extend your wrist. And for those that are fencing, a lot of times you'll see this kind of, what is it called, a foil? And the grip allows your fingers to kind of hold it like this, almost like a gun. So it makes it easier to stab and point. Well, when you don't have that, now when you have a curved hilt, if I hold it at the curve of the body, now I can easily do a thrust or a stab and run you through without having to overly extend or work my wrist, my arm, or my body. Which also means that if I'm going to do a slash or a cut, you can do quicker cuts because everything's the focus of the tip, not the actual side blade itself. So it's interesting for lightsaber because all of it's lethal, but when it comes to fencing and whatnot, it's all about, the tip. So having that curved hilt allows you to get the tip to stab and also do micro cuts against your opponent to eventually wear them down to where you can finish them off. I think it's very comfortable and feels good in the hand. And let's just face it, like the Crossguard, I think it just looks really cool. I love seeing that curved design in there. And then when I look at someone like Count Dooku's hilt, it's just so beautiful and elegant. And it's hard to believe that this belonged to a Sith. Well, actually, technically it was a Jedi, so. But what are your thoughts on the curved hilts, Scott? And why do you like them?
Well, I've always found, especially the angle of the Bane always kind of had the Bad Axe doesn't have quite enough bend to me, and neither does the Vanquish. But the Bane, see, I do believe that this gives you unpredictable angles of attack depending on how you're wielding it, because you can grip it up here towards the emitter, and you're more or less handling it like a traditional saber. This is definitely, more of a one-handed weapon, although you can guide the saber by sort of guiding the pommel end, which is, my style of being kind of more traditional, Japanese swordsmanship. But then once you get your hand around the grip, you can really kind of do a lot of different moves, and you can get more arc on a swing, and you can really sort of Sorry. My cat's trying to sleep over here. You can really, block, and you can see why this is sort of designed for, a defensive style. And then you can let your hand kind of slip down here, and you can really, kind of, I don't know. It's just I like the versatility of a curved hilt. It just, to me, it sort of optimizes, how the human body works, and gives you a lot of options that you just don't get from a traditional saber. The only thing that you really don't get is you don't get necessarily the strength of a downward slash with a two-handed.
On that one, I think the Vanquish, there's so much room on this hilt. I mean, this is me up at the emitter, and this is me all the way down at the pommel. Look how much space is there. So I think the Vanquish definitely allows you to do that. And I think the Bad Axe does as well. Not quite as big as the Vanquish, but I think this is a perfect balance of two-hand and one-hand space and grip.
They're just really comfortable,
Yeah, but again, along with the Crossguards, I think that these curved hilts are not necessarily designed for a lot of flourish and extra spins and stuff. These aren't really designed to be spinning, and Obi Annies feel ridiculously awkward holding these curved hilts. But I think where it really comes, its strong suit is you don't need to do all that, because it has its own kind of grace and flair just in swinging it normally.
I mean, you can do all that stuff, but I don't know. Like you said,
you can, but that's not what these are designed for. It doesn't feel great. Yeah, you can do it, but it's also not using it to be its most effective. Yeah, I would agree. It's the best of both worlds. And I think if you are really focused on being a duelist and trying to focus on points that you can dismember or disable your opponent, I think the curved hilt allows you to do that. And especially, I find that I get more leverage with the curve. So I may not be, like Scott was saying, swinging down is hard with this, but sometimes you don't kind of need to because of that curve. All I have to do now is just take the bottom of that and pull that towards me, and now my wrist, along with my coming down with my arms, allows me to get a bit more velocity and strength on my attack without overly exerting myself, because now I'm using both my arm strength and my wrist strength. So I do like the curved hilts for that, in that regard. And I think if I were a fencer, which I did take a fencing class in college, and was funnily enough, this is horrible. The first class was canceled. The second class, I was sick. And the third class, I just forgot, and I just never went. But you know what? Maybe the professor just didn't realize, but I still got an A, and it's on my transcript. I got an A in fencing, and I never went it for a day. But I would love to eventually go back and actually learn how to fence properly, because it's something that's always interested me, and I wish that my university had a fencing team, because I know some universities do that, and they compete against other universities. But yeah, I do like curved hilts.
I have one other curved hilt that I couldn't look at. I think it's kind of buried right now, but that one was made by Custom Diversions, and that one has the now Biscotti V4, and it's really nice.
So Shannon, that is actually on our list, and we're on curved hilts now, and Inquisitor staffs will be the next topic after we're done with curved hilts. So yeah, stay tuned. So of your curved hilts, Scott, which is your favorite? I think you kind of already said that with the Bane, but is the Bane your favorite?
Well, you see, the Bane,
which is totally a one-handed saber.
Yeah, the Bane I feel is the most comfortable my for my fighting style. But my bad axe is just sort of that was one of my unicorns, and I do like to I do love to wield this, and I've been using this is Spitfire. This is one of Rob's sound fonts, and it's just so gratifying swinging this thing with this particular sound font. And I don't think the Bad Axe is quite as comfortable as the Bane, so I give the Bane an edge.
The Bane has finger grips too, right?
Yeah, it's not really about that for me. It's simply it's just I've always this is the angle that I prefer. This works for me. This gives me the most flexibility, and let me turn this thing on. This one's got a Nigon soundboard. You're gonna love this.
That's right. This is the Alien. I remember when you got this saber. The Bad Axe is not that long. I haven't done a review yet, and I know Scott doesn't do dimensions in his, but I will measure it real quick for you.
This thing is just so much fun. I mean, it's got the sickly green
It's not
blade.
that long, Isaac. It's actually quite nice. So if I go from the base of the pommel to the emitter straight, it's 11.5 inches. And that's if I go across from here straight over. Now, if I do the actual diagonal part, that would be 12 inches. Most sabers go up to 13, or 12. So no, it's not long or cumbersome at all. To answer your question there, it's not a lot of saber. Well, it's not a lot of saber in length, but it's a lot of saber in what it offers.
It's just you don't know how long the Rob took to predict these things, and they're so difficult to find in the wild that you really have to get. I mean, just think about it. Like, you get one, it comes from Rob. No one else has ever used it. No one else ever will. This is yours. Get buried with it.
Like you said, art you can fight with, and it definitely is.
It's an heirloom.
Yeah, I just
it's exceptional.
And all of his special, like his Bane version of this and the Tooth one. I mean, all of these Bad Axes are just so nice. And I know when it came in stock, I just had to jump on it, instantly. I could not let this go by. Yeah, this would be. It's very comfortable. It's the most comfortable curve hilt that I have. The Vanquish, it's a bit heavy, to be honest with you, and it's a bit too long, in my opinion. Yeah, you can take these this claw shroud off, but it doesn't really take much off of the weight or anything. But sometimes I find myself getting pretty worn out swinging this one, because once the blade is on there, you really kind of feel the weight pulling down on you. So great look, good looking design, but as far as wielding it, I feel like it's almost too much and a bit uncomfortable. But Dooku's by far, oh man, especially the Mark II. This is great because what your actual grip is not curved; it's straight. So the curve is only in the emitter. So you still get the advantage of that lowered blade strike, and then the pommel balancing down here is also nice. But where you're actually gripping it feels like a regular lightsaber. So you get the advantage of the angle along with the advantage of a traditional lightsaber.
It is obvious that this contest cannot be decided by our knowledge of the Force, but by our skills with a lightsaber.
You wasn't smiling like that, man.
I know, but I love it so much I can't help but smile.
Count Dooku is the man. He's one of my favorite all-time characters. Christopher Lee just nailed that role.
He sure did.
Now, as far as getting your hands on a curved hilt, obviously waiting for a bad axe is kind of a bit of a, that's like Haley's Comet, that kind of frequency. But there are a few curved hilt options out there. Aegis Sabers,
a lot more now, especially in Saber.
Sabers like that. I would like to get one of those. It's just the practicality of having a half dozen curved hilt sabers. I'm kind of like that, like when we were discussing in our last live stream when we were talking about the core and horn, and you're like, I don't see, why would you need to have more than one? Well, I've got 5 curved hilts, and I just haven't really been in the market for another one. But Aegis Sabers has a really, really nice one. I think it's called Samurai's
Samurai
Edge.
one, yes. I
agree. I would not mind getting my hands on one of those. And
let me pull that up real quick because
yes,
I do like that one. And if I could, because I've really been trying to scale back, but if I could, I would get that one. The only downside is that it does not come with a they don't have the RGB cores available for it anymore, so it's just the NeoPixel, which costs a lot more money. So I'm trying to find that help now.
Now, also another company, Force Sabers UK, which I have no familiarity with them, but if you follow Fulcrum in the Force, he's sort of allied himself with that company. They just came out with a wrong coda, so I've been talking to the owner about that store about he might send me one of those, for a good price, and just so I can review it and unbox it and kind of give them some exposure in the American market. And it's a beautiful looking coda, and you know how I am about codas. And it has like a real DC Saber vibe. It's all scarred up and etched, and it just looks gorgeous. And I think that might be my next purchase down the line. Maybe tax time if I get a return. But they have a curved hilt saber as well. That's actually quite nice, and I'm starting to get used to the aesthetic of their design. They use a lot of rivets and things, but I think they're getting better with their builds, and their hilts are starting to look a little bit more aesthetically appealing to me. And the curved hilt, it looks really nice. You should, if I was in charge here, I'd see if I could pull it up. But did you get the Aegis Saber?
Yeah. Can you see it?
I cannot.
You cannot.
I cannot.
Oh, I keep forgetting to do this. Okay, there we go. Apparently, Aegis has a website now. I thought he was just on Etsy. Now, I will say right now, what you're saying, don't ignore these prices because since I'm in Europe, it's give me euro prices, but in the US, it would be dollars and a little bit less than what you're seeing here. And on Etsy, it's a bit less as well. But yeah, this is Aegis Saber's curved hilt. It's a slight curve, almost like the Fulcrum Sabers for Ahsoka. But I really like the blade emitter that's on top, or that emitter guard that's on top of the saber rather than the bottom. So it's not a claw, it's like a shroud on top. And I think that looks really cool. The pommel looks slightly weathered with the Aegis logo on there. And it has a D-ring, which is interesting. So I like the saber very much, especially how the switch is on the side. So if you're holding it, granted it's designed for a right-handed person, boo-hoo, because I'm left-handed, but it's designed for a right-handed person, so that switch is right there on your right thumb on the left side of the hilt. Now I'm going to go to Saberforge because they've been adding, I think they added 2 or 3 new curved hilts.
They have at least one. There it is, the Aegis.
Yeah, that's the latest one, and I like this one very much. The way they took that that kind of TXQ not Bastion, but I forgot the name of it. But this emitter I'm familiar with in some of their other designs. This body here actually looks like the Vanquish grip. Yep. And the pommel, I think we've seen before too. But they've got a couple. Let me see. I think it's under the Elite. Yeah, so there's the Aegis. Beautiful. So that's one. And it doesn't look incredibly long, which I like it. I think it says, yeah, it's a length of 12.25 inches. So that's good. Not overly long. I think my Vanquish is like 14 inches or something like that. It's crazy long. Then we've got the Bane, which you have. And
I have the Mark I. Ike, did you ever sell your Mark II? You were trying to get rid of that thing for quite a while.
Mark II what?
Ike had a Bane Mark II he was selling on a...
No, I never had a Bane.
Huh?
I never had a Bane.
No, Ike.
Oh, Ike. Oh, sorry. Then the Cyber Assassin, I'm not keen to this one. I don't like this one very much. But this makes
it looks more like a video game lightsaber. It doesn't really look like a Star Wars universe.
I agree. So that's 3. The Reaper. I'm not too fancy about this one. I don't like this. What's the bottom of the switch section? I don't like how that looks, and the pommel's kind of weird to me too. But so that makes 4. Of course, the Count Mark III. That makes 5. Beautiful hilt. Oh, I love that. The Vanquish, that makes 6. This is one of their more original ones. I'd like to see a Mark II version of this and them kind of streamline it a bit, make it a bit shorter, and ease up on those claws. And I think that's it. I think it's just the 6, but that's still a lot. I mean, that's a lot of sabers to offer for one company. 6 curved hilts. That's a lot. Unfortunately, the creator would be LGT, and I don't think China is going to design a left-handed version of that hilt, although it would be nice if they did both. So that's curved hilts. Shall we move on to some of the really weird stuff that we don't have?
We shall.
And that is the Inquisitor. You can see that right behind me here. And this one's interesting because it spins like a helicopter, but you can apparently fly with. You've got this guard on the front, which totally makes sense, but that also opens up so that it can rotate around. And the science behind all that just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But anyway, I have a clip that references or shows these well,
at last, a fight that might be worthy of my time.
Oh, I love this. I love this. I love this. Oh, I want to see the end. I love when Kanan like flips out and totally like. I love Rebels.
I know you do, my friend.
Rebels.
So the Inquisitor hilt. I'll let you go first on this one, Scott.
Well, from what I've seen, anytime an Inquisitor tries to take on Ahsoka, they're
come up
fighting
short.
Especially that guy, especially the Inquisitor that he fought in the last series there. I don't know. I'm assuming everybody saw that fight. It looked like it was going to be quite the match. I mean, he had his Inquisitor Saber Ahsoka was barehanded, and that fight lasted how long? 8-10 seconds, something like that.
Right.
Yeah. And then of course, when Ahsoka fights the two Inquisitors in Rebels, and she just owned them, and it's just sort of it's a gimmicky sort of design for a saber, designed to really give someone that's not that great with the Force, not that great of a dueler, a gimmick, and mostly is that spin effect or the double bladed effect, and they're trying to capitalize on having a combatant like Darth Maul. And I mean, it's an interesting design. I've never had any designs to own one. It's not really, it doesn't appeal to me. But
I do think it looks cool though.
It looks cool, yeah.
More so when it's in a single blade configuration and the guards are folded in half.
I love the blades, the sound of the Inquisitor sabers, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna see if I can locate. I think I'll do it out there. I'm gonna try to locate the Inquisitor sound font. I think I've got one on my Bad X, and then I'll come back in and I'll just sort of demo that. Yeah.
Okay. So for the Inquisitors, I think, as we know, Inquisitors are dark side Force users that the Empire had employed to hunt down remaining Jedi who survived Order 66. Some of them were former Jedi that had fallen to the dark side or they converted over. Some of them younglings, which we saw in I think it was Third Sister from the Kenobi series. But some of them were former Jedi or younglings that were converted over, and others were just found. And their job was to hunt down surviving Jedi. And they were basically almost like the Gestapo under the control or the command of Darth Vader. I think to some degree, the Inquisitors were very limited in their abilities, because if they were a youngling or if they were converted to fall into the dark side or converted over, I don't think the Emperor or Darth Vader or the Empire wanted to invest much in overly training them, because they don't want them to become too powerful, especially since in the Order of the Sith there can only be 2. So I think a lot of the Inquisitors were flawed from the get-go because they weren't fully trained. Of course, they could take on the standard folks, but really handling a strong Force user Jedi, someone like Ahsoka, they were always outmatched, in my opinion. And I think that's also why the Inquisitors always traveled usually in pairs or multiple numbers, because they just couldn't handle skilled Jedi single-handed.
I have Revas.
Thank you, Isaac. And that's also why they got these gimmicky sabers, because they weren't exactly skilled in using their sabers, so they needed something to give them a bit of an edge, and also to get away in a pinch, like holding it up like a helicopter and flying out of there, which, by the way, I thought was kind of dumb. But having a spinning blade without having to actually work it with your hands, I think that's pretty cool. Go ahead, Scott.
Don't ask why I have such agreed.
First, what's the name of the font and who makes it?
It's a
What's the name
Reba
of the font and who makes it?
It might be Kyberphonic, but I also own Juan's Sith version. I don't remember which one it is. It's not. I think this is the one by Juan Sith. It doesn't have quite the same guttural sound quality that that Kyberphonics has. It's funny, but BK Saber sounds his Night Shadows one sounds very much like an Inquisitor sound font. It has that it has like an underlying guttural fluttery sound which kind of groans and moans as you swing the saber, and I've always been a big fan of
I like how it kind of has that jigga 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 sound.
yeah, that's pretty cool too.
Let's watch that video one more time and listen to the way the saber sounds, because I do think it is unique and I do like how that saber sounds.
At last, a fight that might be worthy of my time.
That's cool how the blade comes in and the guard folds in half. That's pretty sweet. I want to see that again. Yeah.
It has that how do you describe that sound? It's not like chimes, or it's like a kind of a flowy, windy sort of sound. It's very cool. That no, it's like
it almost sounds like metal or something flying through the air rapidly. Like, I don't know.
I'm talking about the actual hum. The hum of the saber itself has that ethereal melody kind of. It's like almost a melodic sound that like just ebbs and flows. It does, it's completely independent of the swings or anything like that. It's just sort of like the thing's just sending energy in all different directions, and it's just so evil it can't be contained. And orally it just has has like a quality to it that, yeah, I don't know. I've always really dug the Inquisitor sound font. I wish my Conspirator hadn't died, because that's one of the sound fonts I have on that saber, and I've always been. And it's not even the smooth swing version; it's just a regular, legacy version, which sounds great.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think the Inquisitor saber it's pretty cool, but I honestly think for anyone who is a true lightsaber duelist or user, they probably would not want to use that saber, because I think it is designed for a saber user who is less skilled. And the fact that it can spin, and I also wonder, how do they get it to spin? Are they using the force? Is there a button on there? What determines when it spins and when it stops? I don't know. But you see that some of them utilize it pretty well, but all of them got their butts kicked when they fought against Ahsoka or Kanan or someone with any type of real lightsaber skills.
I think the handle is stationary, and then the round part is sort of mounted on the bracket.
That part we know, because they just hold their hand out there and it's just spinning around.
But as far as
I don't know how to trigger that spin.
When they throw it and it's doing the whole boomerang thing, that's all force. That's all force skill.
That's force. Yeah. But it's an interesting concept, but it's also interesting to know that it's a standard issue weapon because all of them have the exact same lightsaber. It's not like other sabers are the user creates it and it's designed by them for them. These Inquisitor ones are just like, oh, come off assembly line. But it's the Inquisitor lightsabers are the LGT of the the saber, world in canon, I guess. We just mass produce it, and boom, here you go. Here's your saber. Good luck. Try not to die.
It's almost like a lightsaber that's specifically designed to give Jedis that have managed to survive and or defeat an Inquisitor, which surprisingly it seems like any of the rogue Jedis that were out there tended to succumb to Inquisitors or become an Inquisitor or whatever happened. But it's you can farm kyber crystals from those like Ahsoka did, and and then expunge them of all the bleeding or whatever they call it, and turn it back to the light side, and then they become white. Like Ahsoka's blades, in theory, came from that Inquisitor she defeated. That's where she got her kyber crystals from, according to lore. When they portrayed it in that series, that was like something from I can't remember where that originated from, but that's where she supposedly got her kyber crystals from, was from an Inquisitor. So.
And there's one big fatal flaw to those too, and that's which we saw Kanan do at the end of that episode when he fought the Grand Inquisitor. Was Grand Inquisitor was just spinning that saber away, and Kanan just inserted his blades right in between and split the sucker, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end for the Grand Inquisitor. So there's definitely flaws in that system, but I do like the red line that's in the handle of the hilt, and it's really cool. And I would love to get my hands on one and actually have one. I think it's pretty cool, but those are all very expensive. I think it starts at like $700 or something like that, and I'm just not going to pay that kind of money for something like that. But it is cool, and I think as I said it before, it'd be a cool shelf queen type thing to just kind of sit there and just to have to look at. Other than that, yeah, right here. If I get one, it'll be for show. I agree, because having that big metal ring, can you really do what you need to with that thing? You can't do all the flares and spins because the ring is there, but the saber spins for you anyway. So I guess no big deal. Yeah.
So if I do want to, before we move on to the next category, I want to give an honorable mention to a very unique saber that we haven't discussed, and that would be from what was the animated series that came before the last one, the Japanese theme? Visions. The episode, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the characters of the episodes, but it was the one with the samurai in it, with the Sith katana there, lightsaber katana, and he fought the female Sith Lord who had her umbrella lightsaber.
You got a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Mojito just wanted to say hi. That's all.
Hi, Mojito. My cat's right here.
He says hello. Yeah.
Come on, pick him up one more time. Let's see those pretty eyes. It's like, put me down. Come on, Dad.
Yeah, he's like, leave me alone. I just want to sit here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only saw all the Visions episodes once. I should probably go through those again because honestly, I don't remember too much about them.
She had kind of a traditional Japanese parasol type, the ones that they would fold down and they just fold up like that. They're made with rice paper, and then all of the stems were lightsabers, and she had it was on a spinning thing, And then she could fly with it, and then I don't know. It was
Mary
just
Poppins.
complete, yeah, yeah. Mary Poppins of death, you know.
Yeah.
She was an interesting character who did not survive long.
Okay.
That was a
So
really good episode.
let's move on to our next topic, which I think some people might have some comments and want to chime in on, and that is Saberchuks.
Dumb.
Let's address this question real quick. Best lightsaber to buy. That's a tough one, my friend, because
that's a very
So I guess help us with your question. Best type of saber, like Crossguard, Curve Hilt, Standard, or best company, or NeoPixel,
First
or
question.
RGB? Be more
First
specific.
question should be: is he going to use it for dueling, or is he just going to be using it for
Looking good and just swinging it around for your own enjoyment?
So the choices are RGB or NeoPixel. NeoPixel gives you all the wondrous blade effects and the scrolling blade and blaster deflects and everything you want, whereas RGB is a little bit more traditional, just gives you the ability, you can get different strength blades. It's base lit in the hilt, and you can go out there and fight with your friends if that's what you're looking to do. The second question is, are you looking for a traditional cannon hilt, or do you want something completely customized and unique? Because there is a wealth of either out there you can get. I mean, it's almost gotten to the point, especially with LGT and TXQ, where there's so many different designs now that chances are you're probably going to be the only one within a 100-mile radius that has that particular hilt. Like, I just ordered one from TXQ that they just came out with, and it really looks awesome, you know. So you recently bought a Saber Trio.
Yes.
Well, that depends, my friend.
It is dual worthy, but which hilt did you get?
And is it NeoPixel or base
Solo
lit?
Guard, Cross Guard,
NeoPixel.
Aaron, because I would say that Aaron is probably not dual worthy just because of the thin neck.
That thin neck is really quite durable. I wouldn't.
And it does have a deep blade socket too, so yeah.
The Reaver, huh?
Oh, the Reaver. Ah, yes, of course. I have it boxed up because I still haven't shipped it back to them for repair. But yes, I have the Reaver. Well, we both have Reavers. Yes, this hilt is dual worthy, and I like it very much. It's NeoPixel with the CFX. I got this maybe 3 years ago, and it's very durable, and I haven't heard anyone who's had issues or complaints with this lightsaber. So you, my friend, have made a good purchase. Whether it be RGB or NeoPixel, yes, you can duel with it. However, if you are going to use a NeoPixel blade, be careful that it's not designed for heavy dueling, because the LEDs in the blade could be damaged if you whack it too hard. But they do make heavy grade blades, which will make it a bit less likely that the blade will be damaged with hard contact. But me personally, I would never really duel with NeoPixel. I'd rather just use an RGB.
I'd be afraid of damaging not the blade but the pins, the pogo pins that connect to the blade.
That's the other thing too. All that jarring in there could also lay some damage to those pogo pins. Yeah, and once those are gone, then you've got no light, no nothing.
The thing I'm seeing from you is, like, you know,
No, I would not go with it.
The best lightsaber to buy, and you kind of already did it.
Yeah, that's true. I would say Saber Trio is it's an excellent company to purchase from, and you will not be disappointed with your purchase.
I mean, what else is there other than like going up, getting like a Vader's Vault or a Corbanth or something like that? And I just think that, like, if anybody wanted one saber to own, that would be it. Really.
So Isaac, yes, Saberchuks because it is a non-traditional lightsaber, and I think it's worth a discussion because it's funny. So we're going to shift gears to Saberchuks. We've seen a lot of people, a lot of companies, not say a lot of companies, but Pack Store offers some. You can find lightsaber nunchucks, and I think in theory, the concept does not make any sense whatsoever because if it's so stupid, you would be holding the end that would kill you. So you're supposed to swing it like this. So the only time a Saberchuk would really make sense in canon or practicality is one end is a handle and the other end, or the opposite side of the chain, is the blade. But
then it's no longer
but
a
even
chuck.
then it doesn't work because when you do this and you put it under your arm, well, you just screwed yourself. So the concept of Saberchuks doesn't really make sense, but Saberchucked, hella practical, yeah. But before we dive more into this, let's just see one clip that really kind of hit the internet by storm several years ago, which kind of made the concept of Saberchuks really cool. Bruce Lee movie, by the way, that someone edited. Here it comes. So that's Saberchuks.
All right, so if you've got the skill of the master, then you got the skill of Master Bruce Lee. Go for it.
Yeah, I agree that Bruce Lee does make anything look cool, but like you said, if you have the skills, then yeah, you can master or do anything. So I definitely think that Saberchuks are a cool concept, but there's no way. Yeah, I agree, Isaac. Only Bruce Lee could use them. But let's not discount that anyone that would do that would be a Force user. So a lot of times, when you're swinging a saber and doing all this fancy stuff, ideally that's a Force user who's able to control that and keep themselves from, harming themselves. But I think the Saberchuks are a really far stretch. I think nunchucks in general are really cool, a great weapon for sure, especially since you can conceal it. Think about it. Police officers have those nightsticks, those billy clubs or whatever, and they can beat you with it and stuff like that. A nunchuck is the same thing, but now it's lethal, and you can swing it around, and people have a hard time closing in on you. Like what we just saw with Bruce Lee. As soon as he started going nuts with that thing, I mean, I would not want flailing sabers coming at me like that. It's like Treya from Knights of the Old Republic 2 when she had like those 3 lightsabers just flying around her when she's controlling with the Force. That's pretty much what a nunchuck would be with the saber.
Yeah, the only thing that you could possibly do with the concept would be something like maybe a morning star, but instead of a ball on the end, you would have like a lightsaber blade. But then,
Oh yeah.
you, and you could even, you could have a blade on the end of that, for certain things, but it makes it just as complex as the Saberchuks. But
yeah.
I mean, I don't think we need to dwell on this one for too long. The only Saberchuks I've ever seen out there are the ones that the patch store offers, and the connections, are just like big enough for an LED and like a battery.
Yeah, there's no sound involved in that. It's just the light. Although it'll be interesting to see someone create Saberchuks. This is what I'd like to see, Scott. Actual, like what Bruce Lee had. He had the nunchuck, and then the editor added the blade at the end of the nunchuck, which means he could still put it under his arm without the blade being there.
Yeah.
What we typically see in a lot of these other manufacturers or whatever is we see the Saberchuk is like this thin and then it's all blade. Well, now your hand is where the blade is. So I think if you took a normal length, maybe 13, 14 inches, and then put a blade at the end of that, that could work. Especially if you have the Force and you're able to manipulate that. Yeah, that could work. But I think the biggest thing is when you're out here slinging, what happens when you want to stop or bring the blade back to you? I feel like that would be the big fear. And I almost feel like whatever your hand is holding, that blade should be in. Only have the blade out on the one that's flailing. And then when you're done, retract the blade again. I don't know. Something like that would be, I think, the most safe, but also very difficult to manipulate and maneuver. But I mean, seeing blades flying at you like that, I mean, that could be pretty scary, I think. I mean, someone doing this is one thing, but when that thing is just flailing about and you're just controlling it, I mean, I feel like that would be a force to be reckoned with. But overall, no one would be really strong enough, other than Bruce Lee or a really strong force user, to be able to handle something like that. Honestly, I like nunchucks. I think nunchucks are cool. I think I like it for the show. I mean, it just. But a lot of times when you're nunchucking, like I think it was Isaac said it, as soon as it wraps around your body, touches your body, bye-bye limbs, which is true. But that's what nunchucks are. When you're whacking it on the side of your body and flailing it about, and, it's touching your body. So there's no way to be able to do that with a lightsaber blade.
Do you remember the martial arts craze of the 80s when all the you could go to like stores and they all sold like...
I made my own nunchucks. I took a broomstick and cut it, and then I took a little chain and took a screw and screwed it in. I made my own nunchucks. It was awesome. I mean, of course I remember that.
So they had, okay, here's a little bit of history, a little nostalgia. So you could go into the mall and they would have like a kiosk or a store, and you could buy samurai swords, you could buy throwing stars, you could buy nunchucks, you could buy ninja swords, you could buy anything you want, because it was like everything was like martial arts movies and magazines, and you get your comic book, and at the back there'd be like a picture, like a page, and all just be like ninja stuff that you could get. So it was like this whole craze that happened in the 80s, and I managed to get myself like some foam nunchucks. Yeah, it's like foam.
Yeah, that's the safest step.
And I hit myself in the head so many times with those stupid things. And you have no idea what you're doing. You're just swinging around, and the thing foam, and you go whack, and you're like, oh, good thing that was foam, because ow, man, that hurt. And if that was a blade, if that was a lightsaber blade, like no one would get past
On.
training.
Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. And the first time you go to put it under you do the thing under the arm, however that works, and you just and then your arm's on the ground, and you're just like, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah, all those silly British laws there. I'm sorry, my friend.
What?
He was saying that
The colors
they're all like orange and blue now because of their laws.
It's the same thing in the States. We have more laws in the United States to govern the toys that represent any kind of weapon than we have the actual guns. You know.
Having lived in Europe and seen and been to several countries now, Americans don't realize how good they have it. And the freedoms that are in that country are unmatched. There are so many more rules and laws out here that I've seen than any time I've seen in the U.S. And I also think that as far as the American government goes, yeah, there's a lot of issues and problems there. But as far as I don't feel like the U.S. government, you know what? This is not the right platform for this right now, so I'm going to keep that
perfectly the right platform. These things need to be discussed, in moderation. We'll just keep it brief.
Yeah. But I'll say that America has it pretty easy when it comes to laws and rules and restrictions and things like that.
It's because we worship the Constitution, but only the bits that really, really, kind of insert into people's favorite things,
But before we close out on Saberchuks, let's just watch that video one more time.
And then after that, I want to do another.
How do you ban Kinder eggs? Those are amazing. Anyway, let's watch that video.
I want to do another.
What?
I just want to do another honorable mention. After.
Oh, okay.
Let's see the master at work.
So Jared mentioned something. I'd like to see a rope dart lightsaber. I think it's the weapon name. The thing Scorpion uses in Mortal Kombat. Get over here! Yeah, that would be pretty cool, I think. Well, the thing is, you wouldn't be getting over here. You would just be lobbing them off, and there'd be nothing to pull back because it would just melt right through them. But yeah, that'd be a pretty sweet weapon, I think. Okay, so we're now going to transition into our final item, and that is... Can anyone guess what it might be?
Saber Pikes. That's what I was going to mention. We forgot Saber Pikes.
No, I thought about it. I just didn't want to talk about it.
No.
But we could after this. But yes, Saber Whip. We will. Saber Whips. Yeah. This is something that's become, and the only reason why is because I'm also thinking about things you can purchase. And people don't buy or sell Saber Pikes, you create them yourself. Whereas Saber Whips, oh dear God. Although Saber Whips, you can purchase those, though that's a thing. I know Saber Forge was selling some, you can find them on Etsy as well. Saber Whips, I think, are a very silly thing. But Scott, we are here because we wanted to discuss everything, not just, our own personal biases. Otherwise,
all I know is that I was so disappointed that Eyes Wide Shut didn't have Saber Whips. I mean, it didn't make any sense. I mean, okay, maybe they weren't as, practical for what, the activities that, at that.
So, I do have a little something to preface the Saber Whips. So, before we get into our discussion, let's just get a little glimpse of a Saber Whip. Not very helpful. So we see that Saber Whips are not that great. And let's face it, Anakin Skywalker is what we know as one of the greater lightsaber duelists and one of the strongest Jedis. And the fact that he couldn't best Dooku or even stand more than 10 seconds using a light whip tells you how effective or useful those things are. Yeah, Saber Whips equal everybody dead. Just saying. Yeah, anyone who's defended by or holding a Saber Whip, sure. Now, I think the one advantage you can probably get from a Saber Whip is distance. When you're using a blade, your only advantage, the only thing you have that's going to work in your favor is close proximity. If you cannot close in on your opponent, then you cannot disarm or defeat your opponent. What this light whip or the Saber Whip gives you is that distance, which now then takes, you're keeping the lightsaber person, your lightsaber opponent at distance, which now makes it more difficult for them to close in and kill you. So, yeah, there may be some place for a Saber Whip. I think it might be one of those things where you want to have both. Have a lightsaber, you have that Saber Whip, whip that sucker out, do what you need, and if they close in, then you throw that sucker back and you pull out your regular saber and you start having it out. How about you, Scott? Right, I'm almost through this bottle, and yeah.
That'd probably be about the only practical application. If that's going to be your only weapon of choice, then you're going to be woefully inadequate in most situations. I mean, if you're a field and you have support, and you're just sort of like, I mean, you could definitely use the Saber Whip to maybe deflect laser bolts in certain situations.
You're pretty damn good with it, but yeah.
You could be swinging that thing around if you're that good with it. You can maybe take out an enemy or two, but if you didn't have support or a side weapon, you're definitely not going to last long, especially not against someone experienced like Dooku.
Yeah.
I think we would have to see like like a Star Wars / Indiana Jones crossover and see Indiana Jones, you know, see what he.
They should do the Bruce Lee edit, but for Indiana Jones and make that.
Yeah, just pick a choice scene from Indiana Jones and and do that. But Indiana Jones is not opposed to using a blaster if he doesn't have his whip ready,
Now, remember, Dooku was a traditionalist. And, well, let me address both here. Yes, although the blade of a whip is just the tip, technically it's still energy and light. So, yeah, if it's the same as a saber, where if you just touch any part of it, it can cut through something, yeah, that could be pretty lethal and definitely keep you at distance. But Dooku, he didn't like dual-wielding stuff. He didn't like anything that wasn't traditional, like just straight-up single-handed saber. So I just want to point out, look at his face here when he sees Anakin pull out that light whip. He's like, WTF, how dare you pull this thing out? He is pissed. The fact that Anakin pulls out the saber whip. Well, he doesn't have a lightsaber, so he's got to use what he's got. But I think it's interesting to see how Dooku's face changes as soon as Anakin grabs that light whip. There, yes.
That was a look at disappointment.
Yeah, but I mean, what else was Anakin supposed to do at that point? I mean, he was defenseless. If the Force was strong enough to deal with a lightsaber opponent, then no one would carry a lightsaber. They would just use the Force all the time. But that's not the reality. You need a weapon.
Yeah. Well, that weapon is your life.
This is true.
Now, if you're some kind of like kinky Jedi who likes to have a fun evening,
if you like to kill the person that you are S&Ming with, sure.
That's a little side.
I think in the world of everything, do saber whips have a place? I think it's Darth Cephalus. I think he did some saber whip flow stuff, and it was interesting. I mean, overall, it's kind of silly, sure, but I don't even know if Saberforge even still offers their saber whips. I'm looking for it now.
No. But it is canon, as you just proved.
Yeah. But what I also think is kind of silly from a user standpoint and reality is that it's it's like a plastic tube with light shining through your hilt. You can get the saber whip attachment put on any saber. It's like a blade plug or whatever, but it's already kind of curled up. It's not like a straight flexible whip thing, so it doesn't really work too well in my opinion. And honestly, I'm not seeing the whip attachment on Saberforge anymore, so that tells you right there.
Do they still have their exotic weapons like the?
Yeah, I checked there. It's mostly staffs and stuff. The whip isn't there, and the axe isn't there anymore either. Another silly concept.
Yeah, but I mean, the lightsaber axe has more of a practical application than a lot of these, more eclectic, weapon concepts.
Mm-hmm. So you wanted to talk about Saber Pikes.
Oh, well, I mean, I was just trying to be a completist, and it was one of those things that I hadn't heard you mention. So, and I do see a lot of people buying the pike material and adding them to their hilts and making a saber pike, and there certainly is from a martial standpoint, there is a precedent for a weapon like that and a practical application. I mean, if you put a line of soldiers with saber pikes, in front, I mean, any approaching force is going to be stopped. I mean, based under traditional like martial combat prior to the advent of like in this case with Star Wars, it'd be like they hadn't invented blasters yet. They're just everyone's using things like lightsabers or I don't know whatever they would be using. I think blasters have always existed in Star Wars, so this is kind of a stretch. I'm applying that to like Earth history. But if that were the case and everyone just has like light weapons, that'd be a very, very useful defense, against an approaching force. How do you get through that? You're gonna lose a lot of people before you eventually penetrate that line. It's an unwieldy thing though, depending on how long it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have something like 6 feet long, that wouldn't be too bad.
I think when you're thinking about martial arts and chosen weapon, let's get real here, folks. Any weapon that has a skilled user can and will be lethal to anyone. So let's just be realistic here. Anyone who chooses to use a lightsaber whip means that person's probably skilled in that weapon, and that's their preferred weapon, and they can be very lethal with it. Same thing with a pike. Same thing with Inquisitor, whatever. Nunchucks, whatever. So I think the advantage to a saber pike is that, again, you're now creating more distance from your opponent, which makes you more lethal, and you're taking their advantage away from them because they cannot use their lethality against you because you take it away from them by creating the distance. So, and anyone who would choose to use something like a pike or chucks or whip, I would presume would be skilled in that, or else they wouldn't use it to begin with.
Question is, would you use a saber pike if you were in Game of Thrones and you had to fight the Mountain?
So I do have a little clip of one guy who's using a retractable saber pike, and I've seen his stuff before, and he's pretty cool. So I'm gonna share this real quick so we can kind of see what this looks like.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. And someone who knows how to utilize that pike, absolutely that could be a threat to someone. Because now you essentially give yourself what normally we use, 36, 37-inch blades. You and I prefer 32. But now when you put that on that long staff, plus that 32 or 36-inch blade, you've now essentially given yourself like a 60-inch blade, which now you can extend that to attack your opponent, which also makes them more fearful to close in on you, because as you're spinning that, I mean, there's a lot going on there. So yeah, there's definitely a place for saber pikes, I think.
And you're essentially using bow staff techniques,
Yeah.
I mean, most martial arts really, the bow staff is a integral part of a lot of systems, and I think it would be a very, very effective weapon, especially the way that guy was wielding it, and the length of the actual pike itself, and the length of the blade. If you have something that's like too long, like ridiculously long, again, like I said, that would only be useful in like actual combat where there's like thousands of combatants. But
And I honestly think, in the way that guy was wielding it, I mean, he could for sure do some damage with that. So, yeah, let's see that again, because I thought he did really well with that. And he's holding it at the middle of the staff. So if he actually went to the bottom of that and extended it, I mean, he could really hit you pretty good with that.
Well, he has probably like a very much like a, he rides it up his arm and then he lets it slide down in like a full extension thing before he like brings it back and like reels it in. He could probably get a lot of extension with control. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. So we covered Crossguards, curved hilts, Saberchuks, the Inquisitor hilt, lightsaber whips, and Saber Pikes. These are all non-traditional lightsabers. But I think when it all comes down to it, I think all of us would rather just use a traditional lightsaber hilt. You and I, especially a curved hilt, which I think of the non-traditional, I think the curved hilt is the most practical and best, definitely the most befitting of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the dark saber. Technically, the dark saber, there's only one, and I view the dark saber as like a traditional lightsaber because it has the same. Though it's a different kind of blade, it's wielded the same way as a traditional lightsaber.
I agree. So, of anyone who remains in the comment section, if you could quickly, before this live stream ends, what is your preferred, style of weapon? Are you more traditional, or would you prefer to use any of the options that we mentioned here?
Yeah.
You can hit us up in the comments. You don't have to actually. You can do the live stream comments here, but either way is good. All right, regular pike, curve hilt.
So Commander Dale says curve hilt for him. Yeah, I agree. I'm the same. Volt, he likes the regular, which I presume most probably would. It makes the most sense. And the pike, yes. I think the pike definitely serves a purpose, and I'm surprised we don't see more of it. I'd rather wield a pike than a double-bladed lightsaber. Isaac, he's torn between curved and crossguard. I know Isaac is a big crossguard fan. Yeah, that's probably a tough one for you. For me, it's a no-brainer, but I do see some advantage to the crossguard because it has like that auxiliary weapon. You essentially have 3 blades. It's kind of like having a dagger plus a sword at your disposal.
We do have a Chuck user.
Yeah. So Jared says the curved hilt. Yeah. Definitely on board with that. Appreciate that. Pike has range, which is very lethal. When you can keep your opponent at a distance, that gives you an advantage for sure. That's why we use guns. It keeps your opponent at a distance. All right, Mackie. Just to be different, he says the Chucks. If you can wield them like Bruce Lee, absolutely. I think that would be very lethal. However, I think the one disadvantage to the Chucks, again, is that you have to close in to use it. So a Saberchuk person would have a hard time battling someone with a light whip, an Inquisitor style, or a pike. So he's not using weapon knowledge. It's just the force, like Finn. We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works. So regular with katana style blade. Okay. Yeah. So really going for a more slashing style. What's that? Not just samurai, but there's a name for it. I can't think of it. But anyway.
Me, I think I'd probably like to go snick and go Wolverine style. Have lightsaber blades coming out of my forearms.
Now that's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
We should Star Wars to do something like that, you know, just lightsabers coming out for claws.
You know, you just have their like all mounted like right in here, and you just snicked. You imagine what that would sound like, having 6 blades going, Wolverine style, having him going to Berserker Fury, fastball special. You know, see him flying through the air like this, cutting through enemies.
I think you would have to have some type of implant between your knuckles that would prevent your skin and your bones from melting when the sabers are ignited in your.
Well, that's just it. They're like, you know, he would like whatever he normally physiologically has in here would be removed and replaced with kind of like some kind of mounting, which has a emitter, and it would actually be coming out of an emitter, not so much out of its skin like it does.
Yeah.
With its normal claws. So it's just like a completely. I mean, it's just like a fictional bullshit, but you know. Or like Assassin's Creed, like when they remove your finger and they have the blade that comes out here. That's what Volt's mentioning there. I believe they switched to, you know, something that just kind of came out like this, came out from underneath. You know, like a blade like that.
There you go, like Spider-Man. You just like projectile, you know, lasers out of your hand, or lightsaber energy, the lightsaber daggers that just shoot out of your wrist. Yes, the Saberforge did have an axe under their exotic section, but that and the light whips are gone now. Probably because they weren't selling because they were stupid.
And they were expensive, like ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, and for what, you know? Okay, so that puts us at just about 2 hours. I think that's a pretty good discussion. We covered a lot of non-traditional hilts, and I think it was a pretty good discussion. What do you say, Scott?
I think we covered exactly what we needed to cover. Yeah.
Everyone, thank you very much for joining us on your Sunday afternoons. Well, it's Sunday evening for me, but it's almost Monday because it's 10 minutes to midnight. But thank you for joining us on your Sunday afternoon. I hope you enjoyed this, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next live stream, which Scott and I will probably coordinate and figure out what we're going to do next. Yep. Yeah,
and if you want to hit us up with some potential topics in the comments of this video,
absolutely.
You know, we're willing to touch upon anything. It doesn't have to be necessarily lightsaber related. We can talk about, you know, the various shows or even non-Star Wars related things. If you want to talk to us about the Orville or Star Trek, we're down. I personally wouldn't mind talking about
Bad Batch.
No, not Bad Batch, but right now my jam is The Last of Us.
Okay.
I think The Last of Us is going to be an exquisite series. If anybody saw the beginning, the first episode of that, and had their hearts broken, it was. I recommend it to you, Emery. I mean, really, I don't know if you have access to. I don't know if you have access to HBO, but it's based on a PlayStation video game series called The Last of Us, and HBO is really doing a very good job. It stars Pedro Pascal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and several others. It also stars Bella Ramsey from Game of Thrones, who played Lyanna. Was it Lyanna Mormont? She was someone that fought the giant, the little girl. It's like King of the North. Anyway, so we can talk about that. And The Mandalorian. I still haven't seen the trailer for that yet, so yeah, we can talk about all that stuff. So hit us up in the comments. What?
Yeah. Anyway,
2 minutes.
this was a fun discussion. So everyone, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll send something out for our next stream, whatever that may be, whatever topic that may be. So may the force be with you, and have a great night.
Live long and prosper.